Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Diane Livingston. And Diane is a candidate, a unaffiliated candidate for the state school board, District 6, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's really nice to have you. I've heard a lot about you. I just watched your debate last night with Carol Lear, who's the Democrat running, right? Mm-hmm. So what motivated you to run for the school board? What would you describe as your primary motivation?
I think my motivations have actually changed over time. When I first decided to run, it was based on a substitute experience that I had early in the spring. So I was substituting for about 3 days, and I substitute for this same person in different weeks. And so this time I looked around at what we were doing and I thought, wow, and this is the Park City School District, okay, the best funded district in the whole state. And I looked around at what we were doing and I thought, wow, we can do better. I could see things that we really need to do better. And I knew that Carol was running unopposed, and I just thought, I'm just going to go for it. So that's how I started. Uh-huh. And what made sense to me, as soon as I filed in June, I thought, okay, well, I need to get around Salt Lake and find out, because I'm from Park City and that's where I have lived for 26 years. So I thought, wow, I need to get down and find out the lay of the land there and really understand what's happening educationally. So I made appointments with all of the superintendents, and I met all 5.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Had wonderful, meaningful conversations with them, and I went to all the schools I could find, trying to meet with as many principals as I could. Some were home, some weren't, and I'm still continuing to meet with them. Just met with one yesterday. Oh. And teachers, board members. I've met with nonprofits, United Way. I've met with mayors, city council. I've just really tried to understand what's happening in education.
And especially in District 6, right?
Well, all District 6.
Oh.
Yeah, this is all District 6.
Yeah.
And what I discovered is that my opponent has not been in schools. I had one superintendent who said, Diane, I brought you, here's my other 3 people, administrators with me. I brought them in to see something that we've never seen before. I'm like, oh, what is that? He said, we've never seen a board member walk through our door. And I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. And that same sentiment has been repeated over and over and over again. And people don't know where she is. I don't know, and nothing against her. She's a very fine lady, but I'm just saying that this has become my wind in my sails, because I think, wow, if we don't have, it doesn't appear that we actually have a voice on the board that's authentic. And so this is my offering. I'm saying, I've already been doing it. I've been to about half the schools, if not more. And I'm committed to being in all schools within the first year to really, I think that if I can be there talking with people, we're going to have better laws. We're going to have better policy. If we have someone that can bring what's really happening boots on the ground to the board, and when policy is being talked about, bills are being talked about, I'll say, oh, I know where my people stand. And I can call them back. We have a relationship. So this has been a real reason going forward that I really hope that I can represent them, because they deserve that.
Right. So what are you hearing? What are the topics that come up?
Okay.
What do you hear about the most?
Okay. Let's see. Class sizes. Parents are talking about class sizes in the halls. I'm hearing. Now, since the ESSER funds have gone away, schools are they're having to shift again. Some schools were more prepared than others for the lack of the funds, but class sizes is one of the most, it's one of the biggest fallouts from.
So can you explain what that means, ESSER funds?
Yes.
I mean, being inside, you understand that, but right, some people in the public don't know what that was.
Right. So when COVID happened, the federal government passed down some funds, and each school got it. And it's so amazing. it's like a grand experiment, actually, because each school had and district had this little pot of money that, yes, there were some restrictions, but they were able to use that money flexibly. And so sitting in a principal's office and hearing, yeah, for our school, we did XYZ, and then another school, so maybe they one principal that I remember, she hired more mental health behaviorists. Another was hiring some teachers. And so there's different ways that they use the money. But I think what it shows actually is it shows that if we give schools some money that they can have, that doesn't have those strict, you have to use it for this, then they are so responsible. They know what they need.
Right.
And so it's actually kind of a grand experiment. So
it's interesting. I hear that a lot from superintendents, and that is, let us make the decisions closer to the people, right? Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. I mean, I'm an avid Federalist, right? I believe in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. I believe that the federal government has enumerated and well-defined powers, and the rest of it was left to the states. Well, if you think about that same thing going down to school districts, that's kind of the same thing, right? Let us use that money in a way that actually moves the needle.
Yeah, because they know what they need much better than grandpa or the next level up.
Right. And so what are some of those issues?
Okay. So I already mentioned the mental health.
Right.
That is one that it would be so great to say, oh, we're just gonna teach. But they're seeing children that they are having a hard time teaching because they're coming with trauma, different things that they're having a hard time teaching them. And so they want to help so that they can teach. So mental health, I guess I should say. Class size we talked about. Another big one is the English language learners. And so each district that I've talked to is creative in their own way as to how they're figuring out how to teach children who don't speak the language. So that's another interesting way. So those are some of the biggest ones. Of course, class discipline is a really big one too. Truancy, attendance, it's really big. I'd love to talk more about that.
Yeah.
So
we had a last committee meeting, interim committee on education. A lot of those issues came up, but in terms of the mental health, there was a presentation by the board of things they were trying to do. But then we had Ogden School District. And what I really liked about what they said was that they're dealing with early intervention. And so at the superintendent level, they're keeping track of every single student. And they set up a goal. They said, okay, our goal is to have more students graduate. Well, in order for kids to graduate, they need to go to school. And so they know who the at-risk students are.
Yeah.
And they identify them very, very early. In this case, in junior high school, right? So if a kid's not going to school, they send someone to find out why.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
And so it's like let's deal with the cases that are really going to affect their ability to graduate from high school. And so, if you tie the early intervention with the mental health concerns, you're dealing with the students that need the help where it's affecting their performance, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of the things that came up. So what do you think you can add to the state board? Why should voters look at you? If you think about that, what is it about you? And I liked what you said already because you were talking about the fact that you actually went to the schools, right?
I offer that.
And so that's an interesting thing, right? Because now you're hearing what the schools actually want, right? And doesn't that kind of points back to this idea of let's return some of the decision making down to local authorities too, right?
Yeah, decision making, but also being a part of the conversation, because I think that they want to be a part of the conversation. In fact, they should be a part of the conversation because they are indeed the ones that are seeing the gaps. They're seeing the problems. The state board, you merely would hear about it unless you are there in the schools. So it's very important, I think. So that's something that I definitely offer. I know lots of people now because I've been in PTA meetings, SCC meetings. I know these people, board meetings and the like. Something that I also offer is I offer an approach that is open. I'm the type of person that likes to meet with people. I like to talk with people that are different from myself and learn from them. And I think that having meaningful conversations where we're open, we're bringing people together, it helps us to be more well-informed on issues, more broadly informed, and it nuances our positions. I think, and this speaks to the unaffiliated,
right,
where I am, to where we can look around and talk to people with different views and nuance our opinions, and we're no longer so black and white. I think most issues are really not black and white. There's a lot of nuance. And so this is something that I feel I'm uniquely qualified to do is have those conversations in an open way.
That's very good. Hey, we're going to take a break and we'll come right back. Thank you.
Do you know who your state school board representative is? I'm Diane Livingston, and if I'm elected, you will. It's time to have a representative on the board in District 6 who's present in our schools, who pays attention to you as parents, teachers, and local leaders. Someone who listens and knows your unique educational needs, wants, and goals for your children. Since I'm running unaffiliated or independent, I'll be able to focus on children, not political agendas, and find evidence-based solutions that work. I'm committed to support positive student engagement through helping with such things as raising attendance levels, which have dropped significantly the past 3 years, supporting local cell phone policies, and helping with growing discipline struggles in school. I also commit to pushing back on unfunded legislative mandates in education. Please check the box for unaffiliated in November. Diane Livingston, candidate for State School Board, District 6. Thank you.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. We've got Diane Livingston here, independent candidate, unaffiliated candidate for District 6 State School Board. Yeah. Really nice to have you. So, you know, to start with, we talked a little bit about you, but didn't really get, I mean, I understand you moved to Park City from California. Yep. And you actually grew up in San Jose, in California. Very good. So when did you move to Park City?
So we moved in 1998, and we had our 5 children at that point, and so they all started school there. And
so they went through Park City schools?
Yes, all the schools. Jeremy, Ecker, Treasure, Park City High School, and they've all graduated. We had a 6th child a few late years after we moved there. So
you came here, went to school at BYU, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, we went to BYU, met there, moved to El Dorado Hills, which is near Sacramento, and then came out to Park City to develop a little development in 98.
Oh.
So, and we just stayed.
That's cool. And you have a business there in Park City now, right? Auditing business of some sort?
Yeah. Yeah, my husband, Lance, he runs our small business. So it's a great business.
So you came as developers, but then just kind of developed this business at the same time, huh?
Yeah.
So what did you find as your kids grew up in education? What kinds of things did you see? And were you happy with what was going on with your kids?
Really happy. We've had a great experience in Park City High School. The Park City system has been wonderful. So our youngest child, he was born as a premature child, 25-weeker actually. And 25-weeker needs a lot of services. And I don't know if you know this, but Park City is really good with services for children that need extra help. And so he had a 504 all through his childhood, and it was a lot. It was a lot, but he did very well, and now he is out of the house too. And we have all of the children off. We have 13 grandchildren now.
And you're kind of in a position now where you kind of want to give back, and you want to you want to make sure other people have that experience. Park City's unique because they are a very well-funded school district.
Oh yeah, they are. And they have a really strong education foundation. Their education foundation, when we first got there, was very small, but it has grown exponentially, and their donors are very consistent. And I would say there's other districts in our state, there's other school districts in our District 6 that also have education foundations, and some are as well funded or almost as well funded. So I think that system is really helpful to fill in gaps where schools need it. But anyway, yeah. So
we talked a little earlier, and you talked about the fact that you're really focused on the academic side of education, right? Mm-hmm. Making sure kids actually learn.
Oh yes, and so I would say that also a couple things about me. So a few years ago, we went back to school to Utah State to get my master's of history. Oh. So I did that while my youngest son was going through high school. Oh, so we actually graduated together, which was really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. He graduated from high school. I graduated from Utah State with my master's in history. And so I am so passionate about children learning. Children learning. I've always have been. And just the idea that if they can learn, it can be a foundation for whatever they want to do. And so we want to help each one grow to their capacity.
That's real education equity, isn't it?
Really
for
is.
kids to get a good education,
yes.
So they can prepare themselves for whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, this focus on academics, how do we better do that statewide? I mean, Park City's got a good tradition with that, right?
Yeah.
Of preparing students for college or trades or whatever, right? But what kinds of things can you think about that lead to that in a better way?
Well, okay, lead. So that would mean we're thinking about what's happening along the way, maybe till they get to high school. Because I'm thinking about high school, I feel like we kind of have a shift happening in education right now with the CTE. And districts are re-envisioning the way they do high school. The CTE buildings they're blossoming. They're bringing in more and more types of opportunities for students to explore different trades or technical professions. And beyond that, they're getting certificates. So if they go to college, so say they decide to go to college, they actually can work in that field while they're going to school and earn a better wage. So, okay, so we have that part of it, which I think is amazing. But then also we're down.
So CTE, career and
CTE.
Technical Education,
Mm-hmm,
right?
Right, yeah. And then the earlier grades, we are trying to better prepare them. And let's see what.
So we had a bill recently that Senator Milner pushed through on and going back to just the science of reading, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that kids at different levels that the kids are actually reading by third grade. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the first first 4 years they're learning to read, and then they read to learn, right? And so if kids aren't reading, then that's problematic, right?
Yeah.
And that's back to what you were talking about with basic education, right? Mm-hmm. And going back to academics.
Another thing I would say is I think that, and I was just talking to a principal yesterday about this actually, and what she's seeing is that she doesn't really feel like teachers are necessarily up to date when it comes to the kids that we have today. And what she was expressing, so what she has done in her past is she has been a coach for new teachers.
Uh-huh.
And what she's seeing is that they're really not very prepared, that there are things that we could do to prepare the new incoming teachers to be ready to teach the kinds of kids we have today. And I said, well, what's the difference? She said, kids are different today. Well, what's the difference? She said, they don't want to sit for so long these days. They want to be up and about more. And so, you know, if we can prepare teachers for the types of kids that we have now, I think that we could go a long ways to better teaching them.
Uh-huh.
You know, and it's something we don't really talk about that much, but I think higher learning, higher ed, you know, we bring them in and try and think more about that.
Yeah. So what about, you know, you had mentioned before on the break that one of the things that you feel too is that we kind of need to pull the political stuff out of schools, right? And focus more on academics. What are you hearing along those lines as you visit the schools?
Well, schools and constituents. I've done a lot of door knocking.
Yeah.
And when I knock on a door and someone answers and I say that I'm running affiliated, they are like, oh, yes, thank you. Their shoulders come down, their eyes are more perky, you know, they're like, okay, let's talk. And so what I'm finding is that people are really getting tired of all the political insertion into our education system. And they really just want education to be education and not have these insertions of what they deem as politics. And I think that's different for different people, too.
Right. It's kind of coming from both sides, really, of the aisle,
It absolutely
right?
is. And yeah, I'm not talking about one party or the other. It's universal. People are ready to focus on, let's teach our children to read. Let's teach them to write, you know, math, whatever.
Right.
So.
And that should be the focus of the education system.
Well, yes. That's what we're there for. We're there to teach them. And I think teachers want to teach. They do. I think right now they're feeling overburdened. They're feeling there's so many regulations put on them. And as a substitute teacher, I feel that. You go into the classroom like, okay, I want to do some fun, but I have this. The whole thing's lined up for
And
me.
I have to be careful what I say.
Yeah. And there's no time for. One day I was substituting, and I saw that I had to do this like early morning. We were learning about bees, okay? And the day before we were learning about bees, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to bring in my honey, and I want to bring in the microscope and let them see what the bees look like under the microscope, blah, blah, blah. And I knew that but there's like everything's blocked out. And in the morning, there's this little time where they're all supposed to sit there and say something about what they thought in the morning. And I thought, I'm just going to look at bees instead. And so, but I think teachers want to do that. They got into teaching because they love the creativity and the flexibility and to be able to show children about the joys of learning. And when everything is so regulated, it really takes some of the joy out of learning, you know, of teaching, I mean.
And you'd like to see more of that.
I really would. And honestly, I think this might be why we are seeing as many people as we are looking out of the public education system and saying, what more could we do? This feels a little bit boring, a little structured. And so different types of schools are cropping up. One has a farm, one has, you know, there are these different modes of teaching, and I think we like choice. I think we like variety. And that day when I brought in my microscope and I brought in my honey, I had kids who said, this is from bees? They had never tasted honey. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And they were so joyful. It was fun.
And that's really the essence of learning, isn't it?
It is. And for a teacher to be able to share what she knows and be creative and flexible. Yeah.
So we're out of time.
Okay.
But why don't you look out there at the voters and tell them, give them a pitch. Why should they vote for you?
Okay, thank you, John. So my name is Diane Livingston, and I'm running for State School Board District 6. Probably the first driving factor of me running for office is that I love children, and I love to see children learn. What I want to do on this board is be a voice for our district, be in the schools, talking with our leaders, so that when I get to the board and we're kicking around a bill or a policy, I'll know where you stand because I've been there. Please vote for me, Diane Livingston, State School Board District 6. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Diane. I thought that was a really good pitch. And so, again, Diane Livingston, District 6, State School Board.
Thanks.
Unaffiliated.
Thank you, John.
We'll see you guys next week.